No, I didn't. I had no idea. I didn't even look at it till Monday.
Oh, okay.
Web study, and I realized everything.
Yeah. Did you not see my message?
Message.
Well, I put out a message on under news. Do y'all read Rep Study News? Is that a good way of doing it?
Well, I saw that you recorded the class.
I'm there.
See one there.
Hello. Can you hear me, Teresa?
And so I heard seeing some internet is unstable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I did is I put it under news, and I put for those that didn't have, because it automatically cut off.
Yeah.
So the next one's open for longer in case you're late on it. I'll deduct points for being late. Yes, it's open, so go home, take your test.
Okay.
You don't want a 0.
No, I
I
know.
think what threw me was that I've always had Monday night classes, so it's always been due on Sunday night. That's always the night before class. So
I see.
I took yours and I was like, why not do Wednesday? So I jumped on that. I was like, oh no, it's not. It's due now.
Yeah, I was thinking it was because you were saying that we had to do the
Mm-hmm.
Thursday class and everything.
Yeah, and pretty much everything from here on out, like, so we have class on Thursday. All assignments are due Sunday midnight,
Okay.
11:59.
I didn't even look. So,
Yeah, well, check the news, and I'll see if, I don't know if a better way, it should be in you, but I guess it doesn't, because every week there should be something on there.
Yeah, I got mine done.
Yeah, you're all good. Everybody's good except for you need to take your test, but
I know that I've gotten emails before, and it pops up and it says,
Yeah.
new emails.
and I'll do individual, if it wasn't for 2 or 3, I'll do individual emails sometimes. I have people's email me.
Where did everybody get that form? Where you the first form? I was like, if I had to do a form, where they going to do the homework? I mean, where they reading? I think you said
On the
new
form?
book.
Right, under assignments, or go to week 2 in this case, or anyway, the form. Yeah, you go to it, and then when you go to each week, like, well, I'll open up week 3
No,
tonight,
I know
tomorrow.
I do that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like when you want them to talk about Bob. Is it?
Yeah. Mhm.
Where's the?
Just click on form or a discussion question. Get mine here, I'll show you. Hey, Teresa, how are you?
I mean, I know you said we didn't have to do it, but just in case, like, with the web,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we can't show up. I need to find out where he's getting it. So
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you now. Sure can.
Okay, okay, I'm good.
And hello, Danielle, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. We're the brave ones on this weather. We're gonna try to get through this so I get them home tonight before the bad weather hits.
minimize Zoom when you're recording.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know what to do. I know better than this. I gotta share screen. I think by doing this every week, I would know what I was doing, but it takes me a second. I'm used to Blackboard. UCA teaches on it. We teach on Blackboard here, so, but I'm learning web study. I know what it is. Go back to my, let me show you where the forum's at. Right here, you see forum discussion
that.
of the week. That's where you click to go if you miss class, and you can do that one. And then or assignment and exam.
But if we're in class, we don't.
You don't have to do that. You'll
Yeah.
see if you go back and look, you'll see you got your 20 points for participation for being in class last week. Right.
Yeah, if we miss, and I
Mhm.
was like, well, I wanted to go read about Bob.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, on the form, then it'll tell you what page in the book it's in and everything. Yeah, but it's a good read with him and Disney. So yeah, it's in your book. Forget which chapter, but it'll have it in there.
Okay.
And then let me move. All right, so here's news. If y'all will look under news, you'll see this kind of stuff. Like, good job on week 1 discussion assignments. There are a few people who have not completed the quiz. Already opened the quiz. Will be due by Thursday. Please make sure. Now, next week's quiz, the Sunday one, or this week's quiz, it's open for like a long time. But if anybody's late on it, I'll deduct. What happens is I just set the dates, and then some people didn't take it. I was like, they can't take it now. So I went back and reset it and put this out on news for everybody. So check your news weekly if there's anything for the class, and then if it's just individual, I'll email it. that makes sense. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know where else to put stuff. You can put it just like on the timeline, but I was putting it under the news. Just check news weekly. I think it would be good. What news? Oh, Emma? Uh-oh. I'm learning something. See, I'm getting dangerous. So. All right, as soon as she gets back, we'll kick off and get started. And then if you watch the video, and I put in there too, my video was posted down there, and I'll post this one. You know, you fast forward through the first 10 minutes because it's us coming on doing this. I tell everybody that.
I think that's awesome. If you record it in, go listen,
Mm-hmm.
because that helped me out in my history class. And Miss Choke.
Yeah. Oh, I know Miss Choate. Pretty good, ain't she? I know her husband pretty well. Yeah, I put the to convert it. I go through like YouTube and then do it. So I put it on there the other day, and I don't have a YouTube account, but my son does, and he makes these dumb videos. Him and his kids back and forth about it. He's 11. So the other day he comes down, Dad, Geronimo called us, his buddy. No, Jeffrey. Anyway, one of his buddies called him and said, "Hey, your dad's on YouTube and he's just talking for 3 hours." I was like, "Oh yeah, Aiden, I'm sorry, I'm on your channel. I'll delete that afterwards." So it's pushed through that way to get it to convert. But it takes about an hour to do. 3 hours when you compress it, the way it works, and then you get it on there through Web Study. So I'll work on it tonight when we get done. It should be up next day. And then I was a little late on grading everybody's stuff this week. Holiday and some other things hit me, but everybody that's turning in something now is already up to date. And by Monday, everybody should have grades. Anything that's turned in Monday, Tuesday-ish, because some people turned it in Sunday night at midnight. All righty. We're going to talk about the first chapter is ethics and social responsibility. Any initial thoughts on ethics and what it is, or what social responsibility is? Ethics versus morals. What's the difference in those two?
I think it's more about protecting other people. And just from psychology perspective, I guess there's a bunch of stuff on what you can do, what you can't do, why you can't do it, you can't share patient information. So it's not exactly morals, that's just ethics. You cannot do that. Morals probably shouldn't do it, but some people might not.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I should say it kind of like this judge is in trouble today. He didn't know how to separate his moral from his sexual responsibility. When he was taking bribes,
Mm-hmm.
that would separate his ethics from his social.
Yeah, and that one could cross in between. For my Zoom students, y'all know, got any thoughts on difference between ethics and morals?
To me, morals is something, I don't know, that's kind of you're born with. I don't know. And ethics is more you're taught. It's something you're taught. I don't know.
Yeah, getting real close. It's right, but man, there's some little pop-ups today. But think of it this way, the way I see it, and the book doesn't get in a whole lot of detail on it, so it's not a testable thing, but just so we know what we're talking about when we're dealing in social responsibility and ethics. Morals shouldn't change, right? 10 Commandments. Think 10 Commandments, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change over time. We pretty well understand and get it that you shouldn't steal, shouldn't murder, shouldn't commit adultery, things like that, right? That doesn't change socially or over time, does it? Shouldn't, right? People still do it, but we know that's wrong. Y'all are kind of getting at that. Ethics is, and you kind of hit on this, it's more man-made. What's ethical today not necessarily was ethical 20 years ago or vice versa. Does that make sense? You might give me an example of something that used to be ethical that's not ethical now, or vice versa?
Do a lot of the
That's true. That's a good one. It was not unethical because science had not advanced enough, or they haven't made up the rules and thought about that. A lot of times when you get into a new field, a lot of things it takes a minute to figure out what's considered ethical or not. Internet would be something like that. I'll throw one out there. My great grandmother, I have her sewing machine. My wife has her sewing machine now, I believe. Anyway, it was her present when she got married as a wedding gift. She got married at 14. Very ethical at the time, right? That was turn of the century kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So I'm not making a comment on that or saying that that's okay. I'm just saying, but for most of human history, people were married between the ages of 14 and 18. I mean, old maids were 19 and 20 years old, not but just 80 to 100 years ago. The ethics and things have changed, have they not? Because of the way society has changed, and students in school and everything else. School used to quit around about that age, right? So for a lot of reasons, it's changing now. We go, man, that's terrible if you were to marry a 14-year-old or marry them off. In fact, it's illegal. So ethics can turn into rules, the law. So that's ethics. Social responsibility kind of goes the same way. What, as a corporation, ethics is something individual. Your social responsibility can be individual, but when we talk about it in here, talk about what you as the corporation you belong to owe back to society. What are you responsible to act? So it's their ethics as a whole. That tracking making sense to everybody? So we're going to really talk about ethics. Now, if morals come up, we'll talk about them. Can't get around them, like I said. And you said, like everybody who mentioned, that they're, kind of born with them. I think we all have a moral compass. We kind of pretty well knew from the beginning of time that we shouldn't kill people, right? As a society, we kind of get that. So, okay, we'll dive into it. Hey, there we go. So ethics is the inner guiding moral principles, values, and beliefs that people use to analyze or interpret a situation and then decide what is the right or appropriate way to behave. Okay. So move y'all over here. Types of company stakeholders. This is what a company is, who they would be responsible to. Stakeholders, just the people that they would interact with. So employees, obviously, stockholders, people who own your company, the managers, the customers, the community and society, suppliers and distributors. All these people in the company that you would deal with, and anybody else that you can think of that's aside from this, I think it covers it, is people that you have a responsibility to act in an ethical manner. That's what we're getting at here. There we go. So customers, they're the most critical stakeholder, right? I mean, without customers, you don't have a business. Now, for us that work in the government, sometimes we forget that we don't have customers, but actually we do have customers. The problem is, if the customers go away, we still have a job. In a lot of businesses, you don't. So sometimes in my line of work, we forget the customers. We went through this unhealthy thing in the late 90s, early 2000s in the Army, thinking that the soldiers that we have are customers. We didn't treat them. We treated them like customers versus soldiers, and that was a bad idea. It didn't turn out so well the first few years of Iraq. They weren't trained properly. So, we have a customer, and we forget about that sometimes, that we have to be responsible to. It's the citizens that we protect, or the host nations that we're in, or wherever we're going. And you can do all those studies of the things that we've done wrong and bad because they lost the basic idea of who the customer is and why we're serving. So everybody has a customer. It's sometimes not as easy to figure it out. Walmart knows who the customer is. That'd be us, right? We all use Walmart products. But if you work for the government or DMV or any of these jobs, different places, sometimes you got to figure out who your customer is. And again, government has famously missed it sometimes. Congress sometimes misses who the customer is, right? That's when we get angry. Company must work to increase efficiency and effectiveness in order to create loyal customers and attract new ones. We know that. Pretty simple. All right, your community. That's the physical location, like towns or cities in which you're located. Company's located. So we have ethical responsibilities there, right? A community provides the company with the physical and social infrastructure that allows it to operate. So one of the reasons we owe to the community is because they give us things. Right? It goes back and forth. Think about it as why do certain companies go certain places? Tax breaks is one of them. Communities provide that. And let them say they're without paying taxes to get them there. Then they provide a workforce. But in the IT world, those companies are in Northwest, right? And then in Silicon Valley because the people are there to give them the workforce that they need. If you're talking about manufacturing, and Arkansas lost out on a big one, but Tennessee picked it up when they picked up the manufacturing plants for Toyota. When you need a good labor force of unskilled workers to come do your work, you need to be looking at economically depressed places. So Arkansas bid for that real big. We lost out to Tennessee. Tennessee got those some good jobs. It's helped their economy go way up. It's not a bad thing. It's just they knew where to go. I mean, you wouldn't go to Silicon Valley and try to pay $14 an hour to a bunch of people that's got IT degrees. All right. You probably could go to Tennessee or Arkansas and find people with IT degrees, but they tend to house themselves where the companies are and where the community is that gives them the best. They give us that physical and social infrastructure that allows you to operate. The company contributes to the economy, town or region through salary, wages, and taxes. Right? All your mayors and county judges and governors are trying to attract businesses, economically depressed prices, or even at booming prices, because again, it keeps you going and growing. So they offer tax breaks and stuff like that, which leads to some unethical behaviors at times, right? We seem to turn our heads to meals and places like that that do bad things to the environment to keep them there. Yeah, so some of the things we'll talk about now. So here's an example. Everybody know who Enron is? Yeah, exactly. Enron's a big company. They had junk bonds. They were in Houston. They made a spoof movie about it with Jim Carrey, and if you ever saw that one, but anyway, where they started robbing everybody. It was an okay movie, but anyway, Enron was real big, and they had everybody that grew, but they had nothing. They had junk bonds. So everybody put their life savings into it, right, and invested their money into it. That was their pension. And that's what the guy lived off of, and the company did. And they just kept ballooning out of control. Well, it finally come and it busted. So people had literally entire communities went under. Same thing happened shortly after in Phoenix, Arizona. It's happened in Las Vegas, but Enron is the study that gets the worst name for it. They were very unethical. Again, they knew that they wouldn't going to be able to pay the pensions back or anything. So when the company busted, not only everybody lost their jobs, but they lost their entire livelihood. So 10 years in the company, you've been paying into what you thought was a 401k type thing, and you have absolutely nothing. Add insult to injury, people were buying left and right because of the relaxed laws, and they merged the way banking and loans relaxed that and merged those things together. Everybody, so it was a perfect storm, began buying $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 houses. Yeah, with the arm rates and stuff. They were buying those, and so then what happened was you lose your job. Everybody lost their job. Thousands of people in their pension, and all the industries that were tied to that, not just Enron employees, people that cut your grass, did your pools, and all this other stuff. Everybody lost their job, so everything went bad. So guess what happened to property value? It tanked. So now you've got a $600,000 mortgage. You've got about $250,000 worth of equity in it, so you're upside down. So you can go to entire neighborhoods now. In fact, there's a show. You ever seen the show Flipping Vegas on one of those home and garden channels or stuff? Anyway, if you see like Flipping Vegas, a lot of those houses that they're flipping happened during that crash. They're about done with it. It was about 8, 9, 10 years ago was when it ended, and they're not flipping. What happens is you could pick up a house in Vegas for a song. They've got $450,000 to $500,000 homes, as they were, and they're selling them for $100,000, $150,000. Now, as the economy's coming back in, people are going into the whole business, are buying them cheap, fixing them, doing the minor work to them, and reselling them at $300,000 or $400,000. Below what the market was, but that still isn't help. It's better than nothing, but it's driving that market value down. So if I've still got my job and I'm paying for my house, I can't get out of it now because all the others is wrong. In Houston is the 4th largest city in the country. So tied with three other countries, cities, Philadelphia, to a couple more. But anyway, if it can take that kind of a population, 2.5 million people, and drastically affect the Enron, that's a pretty big deal. That's why you hear about it. Note here from the book, the arts community was especially hit hard. Anybody know why the arts community was hit hard in Houston? Rich people quit buying stuff, quit donating. That simple. An entire community started up in Houston with arts and stuff and doing that. And because you had extra income because it was that explosion, the tech explosion at that time, late 90s, but it was really all junk. And so they lost out. So that's just one of the examples. It reached all the way out to an art community. So you think you're safe because you're in Houston and you're an art broker, or you work at a gallery doing whatever, you now don't have a job. So that's how it affects. So that's them acting unethically. So in ethical decision making, there's some rules here that we talk about. Utilitarian rule, which is an ethical decision. An ethical decision should produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Y'all have heard that one before? I'm getting too old. Star Trek, the first one, Spock, being a Vulcan, logic based, exactly. He's the greatest good. He would always be that guy, whatever it was. So you make a decision based on whichever helps the greatest amount of people. Will that always work? No. What if you're that other percent? What if it's 51-49? It helps 51% of the people and hurts 49%. What if it only hurts 1%? What if you're that 1%? But it's a way of making a decision on ethics. Again, morals you don't really make that decision on like that. Ethics you do based on, like I brought up the 14-year-old getting married again because you were done with school about 6th to 9th grade time frame, 14 or 15. You had to work on a farm or in the factory doing something somewhere, so it worked out. You see, things changed and ethics changed based on situations. So you got different rules you can apply. Justice rule: an ethical decision should distribute benefits and harm among people in a fair, equitable, and impartial manner. That sounds fair, doesn't it? It sounds good. Right. We have a whole legal system kind of based on that, right? So you have an ethical dilemma and you are ethical decision to make, and you base it off of distributing benefits and harm among the people in a fair, equitable, and impartial manner. Well, that always works, though.
Not really.
No, you can probably think of some situations where it doesn't. Examples would be our justice system. Sometimes it's going to miss things, or say you follow it got it, but it doles out the justice. But is that the best thing for the society? Is that the best thing for everybody involved? Does that take into account the victim? Does that take into account the amount of tax dollars we've got to pay now and incarcerate this guy for the rest of his life because we've decided? There's a lot of things, not just the justice system. Then we've got the moral rights rule. An ethical decision should maintain and protect the fundamental rights and privileges of people. All right? We like to make a lot of decisions based off of that, right? Again, there goes the morals, right? So we want to make the best decision. Doesn't always work in a society, though, right? Because then it's up against the utilitarian rule, right? The moral decision might not be the best for the entire society. So philosophy class, 1992-3, UCA, professor walks in the first day. He's your typical hippie philosophy guy wearing sandals and hair, when sandals weren't cool. And comes in and says, started the class with this question. There is a little girl stuck in a room who's going to suffer all day, every day, right? No food, 32 degrees, cold, just enough to live. She's 11 years old. But because of that suffering, everybody else can live a good life. Is that okay? That's a moral right, right? If you look at ethics, which I didn't understand the difference at the time, ethically that's wrong. Also, it's wrong, you know, based off what we said, but ethically, 100 years ago, maybe not, because, or heck, in certain societies today, ethically, it's okay for other people to suffer so that you may have it. They live that way ethically. Morally, you wanted to know where we were getting at, you know. And his premise was there's no morals, so I disagreed with him completely. Consequently, I think I got a C in the class. One, lack of understanding, and two, would not yield. Morally, that is not right. But it benefits the mess. So you see these rules and where we're going with them. An ethical decision, the practical rule, an ethical decision should be one that a manager has no hesitation about communicating to people outside the company and society to find it acceptable. Right? Just practical. Now, a lot of businesses are in this rank. They're not worried about morals. They're not worried about utilitarian. They ain't worried about justice. It's what's practical. Give you an example. Clothing industry, or shoes. Right. So remember, we got all mad at Kathy Lee Gifford.
Yeah, I remember that.
We're mad at her because she invested in it, and mad at Walmart because there's a bunch of little 12-year-olds making shoes for pennies a month. Treated bad, working in sweatshops. The companies didn't handle the PR right, and they changed it, and they just lied in a lot of cases. But finally, some of them come back, and they're doing it now, and they're using practical. Do the people in Indonesia want you to leave and not pay them those pennies? No. They went from huts to apartments or houses. They're working hard now. So we're applying our ethical things to them versus that. So the practical is their society finds it okay. And they did. It's perfectly fine in those societies to do that. You can't do that in America because we have labor laws. We have labor laws based off of ethics because used to, at 14, you could work. In fact, it was expected. You worked and you got married on and did that because you had to survive. As we became more industrialized and more educated and started going to school, we said, wait a minute, young men and women need to be at school and not working. We made that change somewhere about 1930s and 40s, right? As a whole, and made a law against it. Ethically, we moved. These other societies are not there yet, so here we are putting our ethics on top of them. Now, you can argue that point all day long. Companies, for the most part, don't get in that. They just take the practical rule. Right. Hey, I ain't got no question doing it because they're fine with it. So if I go to a community, and this is what people have to understand. I come from Crossett, Arkansas. Anybody know that's Southeast Arkansas? Georgia Pacific Mill. There's a new video that's out about the company Georgia Pacific, now owned by Koch brothers, destroying the environment and people with cancer. There's one street with 9 houses on it, I think, and 6 of those households have cancer in them. No, all 9. 6 of them have multiple cases of cancer because of it's on the west side of the creek, but they put all the chemicals in. We call it Stink Creek. In fact, if your dog has mange, you take him down there in the old days, dump him in the creek, come out and cure it. This is a nasty coffee looking where the chemicals were. A lot of cancer down there. If you ask the managers and a lot of the people from the town today, they will get angry with you for bringing it up and for people sticking their nose in there because it's fed them their entire life for generations. The paper mill. They will tell you, and the company owners will tell you, the people didn't mind. We're doing this, but no one cared. That's their bailout right now. That was the company's bailout. They sold to Koch, Georgia Pacific. The Koch brothers bailout is more of the practical rule too, and well, now it's more of an economical rule. If you gripe, I'll move the plant. I'll rebuild the plant because it'll be cheaper to rebuild it in Mississippi under the new standards than to fix these standards here because I have infrastructure existing. So you actually have another big fight amongst the town of people wanting to keep their jobs and the other people mad because they have cancer. You can imagine which side you're on. Depends on if you're sick or not, right? Practical rule. Ain't always good. Ain't always bad. So in ethical decision making, these are some things that you have to consider when you're making it and you make that judgment. Then you need to go back to your stakeholders as to who it's affecting, right? Realize it don't just affect your customers. It could affect your employees.
So any one of these, it still be bad or good depending on the person's decision about it or thoughts about it, right?
Exactly. The situation will dictate as to what you need to do. Here we can't give you the answer to do. No one can. What we can tell you is the things you need to consider. And And if you look at and go through this whole thing, and most ethical decisions you got to make, you will have some amount of time. So consider what we started off with: stakeholders. Number one, who is it going to affect? Not just the immediate ones, the tertiary effects, right? Second and third order effects. Who else is it going to affect in the community around, or whoever? You got an ethical responsibility not only to your customers, not only to your town, but to your stockholders, right? To make them money. You can't just give away the company. They invested in you to do this. So you got to think about this. Then you got to figure out which rule. Am I going to stand morally? Some things you're going to stand morally on, right? Now morals don't change, and you always did, but sometimes making a moral decision, is you got to realize it's going to might cost you, right? Utilitarian rule, am I just going to do a lot of times we figure that one out. We just try to make it easy, sometimes, well, who does it help the most? Sometimes that works. It's not a major deal. So yeah, you got to figure out which one of these rules you're looking at. You won't remember and you don't have to say this rule or that rule. It's the concept that we're looking at, and then you need to understand. That's why I don't like the look 100% with the moral rules stuck in there and then mix the bad things. That's why I started off with saying my worldview as a Christian is that I have a undeniable set of morals that is not right to break. Right? So if I do, I need forgiveness for them. And it's not my right to break them. Don't change them, they stick. They're not necessarily that hard in the book on that one, on that particular rule as they go around it. But you need to understand which realms that you're in when you make that decision, who you're going to affect, and which way you're going to go with it. Is that making sense? So that's why I started off with the differences between the two. Trust and reputation. Willingness of one person or group to have faith or confidence in the goodwill of another person. That's easy, right? I love hearing saying, "You lied to me, I don't trust you no more." It's a lot deeper than that, and it should be. You ask that question: who here has lied? All right. So that makes you a right. So you got to go a little bit deeper when you're earning people's trust. We know that as people, but as a company, sometimes they miss that. So to have goodwill, and that's the word in there, of your customer base or your clients or your employees or your stockholders or whoever it is or your community, you've got to do more than just never not tell them a lie. Because you cannot tell a lie and keep a lot of stuff back, right? How many people has ever had that happen with them, right? To avoid a lie, you just don't tell the truth, right? You just don't say anything about it. Well, that's not right, is it? That's not right in itself. So it's not just about lying. It's a company's goodwill. And remember that as a manager towards whoever you're talking about goes well beyond that. So willingness of one person or group to have faith or confidence that you do have to earn. Lie to them, they'll probably not have it, but just not lying is what I'm getting at. It's not the answer, because that would go back to my Georgia Pacific thing. They just ignored the fact. They didn't ever say that chemical wasn't bad for you. A lot of companies did that. They said, "No, this water's good and it's catching on fire." We've seen the Aaron Brockovich stuff. Y'all remember that movie at all? Anyway, it's about that kind of stuff. Georgia Pacific never said that stuff. They just never said it was bad or told you that you shouldn't be around it. They never told the entire truth. So to get the goodwill of the people,
So basically, they would be hit with cancer too because they weren't around it all the time.
well, the managers know. It's geographically located as to who gets cancer, and where the managers live. The town is very broken out into the areas. We call it the concrete roads. That's where the rich people, where I grew up, and those guys and gals moved in from elsewhere, and they were on one side of town with the prevailing wind north, and the water wasn't there. If you were in West Crossett, you would have a lot higher chance. That's what that particular street is, and that's where the creek ran through, and that's what the prevailing winds go through, carrying the smoke and the smog over to that away. You can figure too, the predominant makeup of West Crossett is minorities. You you can see, and then depending on where you lived at. So no, they move out of there, and most of the executives are there for anywhere from 4 to 8 year stint, and they move back to corporate. So no, they didn't have much of a stake in the community. But you can imagine the other guy that lives in the middle of the town, his son is planning on working there, is now working there. He works there, not letting that company go away. Everything he knows will be gone, and his daddy worked there. My brother-in-law, my father-in-law is retired from the mill now. My brother-in-law still, he doesn't want the mill to shut down. They'd have to leave. I was going to move in with me, so I don't want to shut down either. But I do want to clean up the mess. No need my brother-in-law. No, good dude. Good dude. So sources of ethics, here where they come from. Your occupation. Occupations have ethics, right? We know about doctors and social workers and such, and everybody banking has ethics, right? There's banking ethics. Every industry has a set of ethics for it. There's societal ethics, right? We know those. We discussed those a little bit. Societies, and they're different as they go around, right? We understand that. Each person has their own individual. Then you have organizational. Is that word under there? I think it's organizational ethics, yeah. So the occupation has it, but your own company itself can have it, right, within that. And they can differ. Where the problems come in is where your ethics, individual ethics, differ with your organizational ethics or occupational with the society. Right? We've seen those cases come up before. So societal ethics is how members of society should deal with one another. You know that one. Involves issues such as fairness, justice, poverty, and individual rights. See how we treat poverty here.
Yes, Washington, Region 950 to us. No, smelly, no. When you pass me smelly, smell what? Smell what?
Many times participants.
Smell what?
Hey, Tawana.
Mm.
I will mute Tawana. Now hear me, doesn't realize her speaker is now on. Not a problem though. I figured out the mute button.
I'm like, what?
Getting some help on the glass. That's okay. So we've seen how, we've changed on how we deal with poverty, right? And individual rights. Talk about one of the greatest leaders of all time, Martin Luther King. Individual rights, just rights were different 67 years ago as we saw it as a society, right? That has changed and it's changing right before our eyes in our lifetime, right? To the positive in my mind. Fairness, justice is completely different. You ever watch those old movies, In fact, now people watch the Andy Griffith Show and they're like, man, they're rough on Opie. Like when Opie killed the bird, y'all remember that one? I love Andy Griffith. Every kid make them watch the show. But people today in school, and they talk about, because the way they saw fairness and justice, it was pretty harsh. It wasn't in the show, but today we let people off the line. I can remember recently with my children that things upset them, and either me or my wife, let's give them a break. But when you go back and you watch Andy Griffith, what happened was he had a slingshot, and he had to be responsible with it, right? And he killed a mother bird, and the little chicks were crying, making a noise. And Andy took him out there, realized he killed the bird. Opie lied, whatever, he found out about it. And he made him listen to the birds cry. Really upset Opie, right? That's the kind of thing today they're going, man, you're harsh on him. He made him pay a price for it. That was fairness and justice today. I don't know that today we shelter a lot more that goes over as much the way he did it. So just watch an old TV show and you can see the change from 1955, 60 to 2016. So, of course, how we see poverty and individual rights. I mean, we now, as a society as a whole, think that everybody, as a whole, not everybody thinks this, but it is passed, and this is what it is, no matter where you're going, thinks that everybody has a right to health care, right? That is a relatively new idea in the United States. Not, 100 years ago, what? No one got health care. Now, but see, things have changed. Because 100 years ago, you couldn't have gave 10% of the population health care. Today, the ability lies there to do it. Is it the right thing to do or not? Question. So ethically, we're discussing that as a nation, are we not? That's changed because some things have changed. You wouldn't have discussed it 100 years ago because the opportunity wasn't there. the opportunities here today. So that's how ethics work and society ethics. So
Healthcare is okay. The only thing I don't like is penalized for not having it. I think the way I feel about it is it's out there for you to have. If you want to take it, if you don't want to take it, I don't think you should.
should be penalized. Right, exactly.
Oh, I thought, when I was because I was working for the office, but now the law says that we work over 30 hours a week. If I'm coming in off of healthcare,
Yes, that's
so
good.
we will do that.
Yeah, a lot of people that hit them. I teach at CBC because I like CBC and they have an opportunity. But my other opportunity to teach came because of that. Webster and Park University had a lot of instructors who taught a lot of classes. And adjunct professor teaching for them was lucrative enough for them to do a lot of hours. But the amount of hours that they taught, the accounts, had to provide health care. So they had to cut all the instructors, adjunct instructors, because these are all non-traditional programs, in half, basically. And then they started looking for us, other people to jump in and teach. Wasn't the case at CVC, a little different there. I just had an opportunity and I liked the program, so I thought there. But I still have the opportunity, in case y'all give me a bad evaluation and fire me, to go teach elsewhere. So and hopefully I've learned from that. And yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people because of that. So that goes back to some of the rules. Is it ethical to give everybody health care? But then at what cost? Because it costs somebody something. So what rules that apply to? See what I'm saying? You go back to the utilitarian rule, the greatest good. Did it meet that? Or is it distributing this is the justice? It's more of a justice thing. Everybody deserves it, but who is it going to cost and how many people is it going to hurt? Because they tout now there's 200,000 people that are now covered that weren't. So is that worth hurting another 2 million people, roughly, job wise, or paying more money because your healthcare went up and all that? Yeah. So those are the things that you see every day when you're a manager in a position. You get with that dilemma. Think about it all the way around. Don't know that the people who passed it thought about it all the way around. And I think that's why we're where we're at. Not saying that I think we could all agree if you have the opportunity to get everybody healthcare, do it. The issue is then who do we hurt to do it? Who has to pay that bill? And then how much is it? I heard an interesting case today, as a matter of fact, it was on the news. The current job I got, I'm going to have to work on this. I don't know what to do this. We talked about being new in an organization, and I changed. They had this big TV out front, and they got Fox News on like constantly, and they listen. We're not overly worked right now. It's okay. My office door's open. I can hear it. I'm trying to work, and I keep hearing this. And I like to focus when I work. I have this problem when I hear other things. I listen to it. But so anyway, I'm hearing all these news stories. I'm getting more and more up on current events. But in Georgia, the state Supreme Court in Georgia, this is what this society's come to, is deciding the value of a dog. Is it merely property, or does it have more than intrinsic value as property? And the example was they had a little wiener dog that they sent to the adoption that this family sent to the vet, and the vet made a mistake and killed the dog, gave it too much medication. So they sued and want money from them, and the vet says back to them, it was a rescue dog. It cost you nothing, so I owe you nothing. So they're deciding the value of a dog, or does it have the hurt feelings? Do we pay for that? So the question would go back to, is it okay to take away from one person to help another, even though you're not asking, but you're just taking? Right? So that's really what we're back and forth with. So that's ethics in a nutshell. So it was funny today, I heard that one about the dog. So now the Supreme Court, you know, there's somewhere around 800 people on death row in Georgia. And we're talking about that. Now, I think they ought to give them some money because they messed up. And the dog, I love dogs. I think they have a lot of work. I think you messed up, you owe them some. Yeah, morals. You owe them something. That's me. But besides, so I'm not taking away from that. But of all the problems that you have in Georgia, which is probably the same here, but I know they have problems. They have to. That's what they got Supreme Court doing. So me, that's ethically bad use of time for bunch of justices. I think if I had made myself got those degrees and got to the pinnacle of my career and was in the Supreme Court of any state,
That's what they had to do.
and you brought me that case, I would have to say, no, I don't look at that. Figure that out elsewhere. Y'all work out something, you know. Not that they don't owe them something. I'm just saying that's not for me to decide. But anyway, personal opinion there. Oops, did I get that one? Occupational ethics standards that govern how members of a profession should conduct themselves when performing work-related activities. We all go back to the Hippocratic Oath on that one. That's an easy one. Doctors, do no harm, right? They have to help you if they can help you, My wife, being a nurse, they have that thing, and they have that dilemma because she goes pretty much uninsured. She still works at the hospital as a nurse and forced sometimes to keep her skills up because she teaches nursing. She's a nurse practitioner by trade, just doesn't do what she teaches and that. But the same thing happens, and they always give them these cases and teach this nursing is you see someone hurt, do you help? And because nurses are not protected,
Right.
but they have the ability. So you got the good citizen rule, the Samaritan law, and then you got the legalities of you help someone, then they're angry with you, and where was your skill set to do that, and that kind of thing. So they always have those. They discuss those ethical limits. They have a whole ethics class and with nursing and stuff.
I think that's when you make the person say, may I help you? And, if a person wants to help you,
You can't, but a lot of times nurses ask and they go, hey, yeah, because my buddy was in a car accident, knocked his head wide open. He was fine, but it cut him pretty good. And so I wrote, look, one of those things, look worse than it did. And people stopped the lady got out, and he goes, she asked me, do you want my assistance? He's like, well, yeah. And my wife was like, well, yeah, but she was protecting herself. My wife is the type, she's been in a couple different situations, unfortunately, where she's helped people. She doesn't ask, she just goes, we'll worry about it later. When she was actively a nurse, like every day working for her advanced degrees and doing other mess, we did pay for malpractice insurance because I overinsure. At this point, she's like, it ain't worth it. We don't pay for it. But you don't have to have it as a nurse, but they suggest it heavily. Occupations have ethics. That's what we're getting at. Really? Yeah. I didn't think about this. Right. Got to ask if they need help.
They teach you, they do CPR.
That's what the CPR now, you gotta do that too.
There you- Wow.
And you gotta have your license.
Oh, man. Okay. I got it. Dinner. No. Wow. I would, and I'm naive, so it probably wouldn't happen. I would like to think that I, in good faith, rendered aid. Right. And they wanted to sue me over it. Again, the judge would say, no, that's just stupid. However, we all know fact is the lady sued McDonald's over the hot coffee. And won. That again, wasted
Or
time.
somebody breaking into your house and get hurt.
They sue you
Exactly.
And we.
and win. Yeah, there's some silly things out there that we've gone too far. But again,
That's
that's,
what the justice rule.
yeah. Yeah, how's that fair? I never understood this one, and did social science my whole life, and but we started off with Lady Justice being blind. That makes zero sense to me. If she's got eyes that God gave her, use them. I understand why we think justice needs to be blind, but in these cases, sometimes it is. So, sticking to one. Personal, individual ethics, personal standards and values that determine how people view their responsibility. We all have those. You have your own things you think you can. Honor them on each kind of deal. Some people, have a different standard than you about how they would treat you. I deal with it every day because, and take again nothing away from it. There's real problems with veterans who have real issues. I see it every day. I see PTSD every day amongst people that I work with. But now it's to the point where it's a given. So, people go and they get VA benefits. So two things. If you're active soldier, you shouldn't pull VA benefits at the same time. You can because the VA has that little rule that we don't tell about your health. So the government, the Army can't, or the military can't know that you're doing that, but ethically, I know it's wrong to pull two checks for the same thing. If I have a problem, then why am I serving? You see where that comes in? So I see people do it all the time. you know, I have, 26 years in the military, bad back, knees, legs, the whole, the surgeries and things. Man, you can go to the VA and get a check right now. I know I'm not going to go get a check from the VA. My ethics are such that I just couldn't do that. I don't judge other people who do, but I see it every day. And they ethically, it's not that they're going, that's terrible that I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it. It's in their mind, it's okay because their view of the government is, well, they owe that to you. Okay. I owe a service to you in the military, to this community, is the way I see it. When I'm unable to serve, and then if there's a VA check that comes afterwards due to the injuries, which again doesn't make any sense to me, just fix what's broke. A monthly stipend does not make my leg quit hurting. But that's me. But ethically, I sit alone. Now, I'm making no comments on anybody who's drawn the disability. There's plenty of people deserving, and there's plenty of people, as we've seen in the most recent cases recently at the VA and other places, who are not getting the proper care that they need. So I'm not making a judgment on that. I'm just telling you, my line of work ethically, I can see me having a little bit different ethics than folks. It's how to act when one's own self-interest are at stake. And that's key. This is how I make my decisions pretty much at work on doing things that's going to either go out of the norm or just a decision to be made. My first question is, and I like the way this is put in here, my first question is, who does this benefit, this action? If that action benefits me, we're probably out of no. At a minimum, we got to stop and look at it. This is going to benefit me in a way that is probably not an action I should be doing. Again, my life is dedicated to service. Service doesn't bring me benefits. What I get to do is stand up at a football game when they say, oh, thank you to the veterans at church on 4th of July. That's it. I don't expect a certain thing for that. It's not service. So I always look at it that way. If it benefits me, then wait a minute, is that what I'm doing? Now, I do plenty of things that benefit me, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, if I'm making a decision at work, that's why, is it the right thing to do for me to take yet another check? Who does that benefit? Does that benefit the government? No. Does it benefit me? Absolutely. I get more money. Does it help the taxpayers? Is it good steward of the money? No. So if it benefits me only, as a manager, if you look at it from that, or you dive off on these things, figure out, does it benefit your buddy? Does it benefit just one person? Does it benefit the corporation? Then I get into who does it harm, but just start with who it benefits. A lot of times you stalk yourself on a lot of things. Because usually when I'm wrong with something, I can justify it later on. But really, you're trying to help me. Right? So, but that's individual. So how you act with your own self-interest is at stake. If you're serving, that means, or a sacrifice, that means you give up something. So, that's me. Organizational ethics, guiding practice and beliefs through which particular companies managers view their responsibility toward their stakeholders. Obviously, Enron and several of those other junk bar companies did not have very good organizational ethics. A lot of people at the very top, the company with several thousand people working for it, 15, 20,000 people, knew that their stakeholders, which was their company, their people, their associates, were getting ripped off. They were okay with it. Some organizations have really, really good ethics. Anybody here work for Blue Cross Blue Shield ever? Never have. Everything I've heard, they have a very good organizational ethics, taking care of their people. There's some companies out there that have organizational ethics. They're good to their insurees, supposedly, from what I hear. Yeah, all the people that's insured by, I get government track everything. And my father was military, so I don't know. But everything I've heard, wise and stay-wise, Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield is excellent, just as a organization to look at. And the people that work there, the same thing. They're good to their community, that kind of thing. So companies have some good ethics. Some companies have bad ethics, right? They just don't have it. You probably think of some out there that, I'm currently dealing with a security provider who I think have bad ethics, who provide an alarm system for my house. And it is terrible, even after my contract is up to get out of paying. And they hit me again today. And I already told them I don't want to be charged anymore when I'm done. But, they want it. I think they have a bad ethics. So I'm working on getting out of that company and never paying them again. So I think they have a bad.
You set up the payment.
They're coming out of my checking.
You give them a checking account or your partner?
Don't know if that's my wife. But yeah.
But in the bank, they'll be.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're right.
Termite.
Yeah, because
Bank is so
my wife asked me this. I said, look, don't stop payment on that. Don't ever, because it's to my account. So can I just stop them from taking it on my Regions?
I don't know how regions will handle that, but most of the time, if you did it with your debit card, that's how enough to get your money.
I'm sure with my debit card. But
If it's your debit card, now if you.
Yeah, with my routing number or whatever my account.
Yeah,
What do you gotta
probably just don't have to change your account. Now I just know how we do it. If you're trying to do a stop payment, if you got a direct deposit, all they have to do is just change about a penny over or less than the full. So find out who reaches, how can they get that stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. That's ask her tomorrow. I was like, how do we stop? Because contract's over. They hit me this month, but they probably won't hit me next month. But I don't trust they're going to, and I don't want to fight them.
It's kind of hard for that.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. We knew better than that. I did it. Never buy anything when it comes to your door.
Speaking of, how's your TV work out? You get paid with it?
No, I'm stuck on Uverse. I'm not doing that anymore. Those people have made me mad. I'm not over. I'm supposed to be unmad by now and call them back and get the whole DirecTV. I saw the commercial the other day and I got mad again. Whichever one AT&T bought. Yeah, whoever they bought. Okay, so I saw the commercial the other day and I got mad all over again. Changed the channel. So I'm threatening, but it's not going to stick to my family because they rule the roost. Just get rid of TV. Honestly, we don't watch it that much. We pay too much money for it. So anyway. Yeah. Younger generation can do that. I don't know. I'm stuck to one remote for 10 minutes. I don't know. I need to get around, but I'm paying too much for that. So yeah.
They have like 10, 11, and 7, 4.
We still have
You get that through the air
4,
too.
7, and 16. We can't get 11 and below yet, but if I get
Yeah. I like these things.
I have Netflix too. And the
Yeah, I got it.
It's funny you hate them, but I like it. I don't like Dish.
Well, I never had them, so I don't know. It was them not giving me the from that. I'm just funny about those things. So, but yes, I have Uverse where you can, of course, you can do them all of them. They're on demand. So I look at my bill and we got like 10 movies. Then we go to Redbox. It's only $1, but it's $1 a day, and then that sits there for 4 days. Hey, and then we have Netflix, right? At one time we had like Hulu and something else. Like, what are we doing? We're watching too much stuff. So anyway, we're scaling back, but
There is this thing that you can get on the internet called Showbox. You get all of those movies free. I'm actually not download. I have to get somebody to do that.
do it, boy. I think we'll be better off when we quit watching movies so much. I think that's the real key. The root of the problem is not my cable provider. It's our habits of watching too much TV. But social responsibility, what is it? It's what the company owes to society in general, right? For the text, the way a company's managers and employees view their duty or obligation to make decisions that protect, enhance, and promote the welfare and well-being of stakeholders in society as a whole. Pretty self-explanatory about the text. So, approaches to social responsibility. Low social responsibility down on the left, go to the right to high social responsibility, obstructionist approach, defensive approach, accommodative approach, and proactive approach. So you can just be outright obstructing things and making things bad on purpose. You can just say, I'm going to do it, but I got a good defense. A lot of companies have that. A lot of people don't do the obstructionist approach. Enron did. They were just obstructionists. They're like, I'm going to do this. I am going to profit, and someday it's going to be bad for everybody. But I'm going to take it right now. Little kid will eat all this candy and I'm going to have a belly. But I know it's going to hurt.
Do you think instead of they were just putting these people money in their pocket and not having a place for them to set it up so they can get their money when they get it?
Absolutely. If the pensions were tied to their company's worth and they had nothing there, by the time they put it in, what they would do is they would take the money and then they would elevate how much they had. Bernie Madoff, same stuff he did. He jumped on, but Enron did it as a company first. Bernie Madoff just did it himself. But people still in prison over it because they did it. But they were like, that was money I got. Oh, did it? Didn't know. Yeah, it's a rough deal. That's an obstructionist approach that they took. Defensive approach, a lot of companies operate in this. We'll defend it when it comes. We'll defend that. Accommodative approach is we'll give you something for it. That's much like my situation across it. I think I haven't lived there in 20 years, but the family's still down there. It seems to be accommodative now. We'll keep high salaries for your work and stuff like that. Keep a job going, accommodative. Then there's practical approach. We're going to not do these things. We're going to actively find ways to prevent bad things from happening, or to actively be responsible. We're going to give to the orphanage down the street. Proactive approach, right? Taking care of my community, making it better. Role of organizational culture. When I say organizational culture, you know what I'm talking about? That's the ethical values and norms that they operate by. The culture that you're in. Let's see. A mood is much like the weather. The mood that we're in today, you know how it is. Some days we're really busy. The company's busy. It's kind of like a mood. Or we're all sad today, or we're all excited today. So, yeah, ticked off. That's more like the weather changes daily. And then there's climate, which is the overall how we overall Arkansas's climate is mild. Today you wouldn't know it, right? 33 is the worst temperature you can have in rain. Because it's cold, wet, no snow. You stay wet, it's not dry, it's just horrible cold. Hated it today. That's climate. That's weather, not climate. Culture is more like the climate of an organization. Does that make sense? Overall, how they operate. Okay. So there's a huge thing in studying in behavior is how that plays in organizational culture. The Army is really big, and we've been studying it. We've been in the news not much here lately. We've combated it a lot. We have an organizational culture that was such that obviously didn't do anything good to protect certain people. And an example was, of course, and it was in the military as wide. We all heard about the tail hook, but our sexual assault and harassment cases were out the roof much through the 90s. Probably way earlier, it's just they got reported 90s, 2000s. We've changed our organizational culture to where we take a proactive stance against it and try, or at least making a very good attempt at it. Organizational cultures are studied throughout how people see themselves, that organization sees themselves, and how people act because of the culture knows it is, right? Some of the studies you can see pretty grim, but the organizational culture in a abortion clinic, they have to really indoctrinate a lot of the people in those clinics to do what they do. They have a culture that they have to try to make what you do plausible to square with your ethics and morals, as you said. And then your ethics and morals can be affected, at least your ethics can, and how you see things, by your organizational culture. So we play into the culture, but we can be affected by it, right? Because if it's okay at work. Well, you've maybe seen spy movies where the guy's a super nice guy, but he works for the government and he's an assassin. Because we have those people in real life. And it's okay because it's a culture in which they're in to, protect. They see it a different way. Well, snipers will be the same way. That kind of thing. Organizational culture, but it plays big into everywhere you go. So it's big. Talk about resist self-interest, interested action, and realize they are part of something bigger than themselves. That's what it's about. You try to, as a leader or a manager, you try to set a culture that is positive for your work, right? To your bottom line to make money. Right? So in my line of work, we call it command climate. We use the climate term, command climate. And a commander sets the tone for how it is. You probably said it at your house, or somebody does. They do it at work. There's somebody comes in charge, and they set the tone. If everybody's going to be a bad day, probably unhappy today, or not. So there's an organizational culture, and then you get your subculture within your rural office area. So that's what organizational culture is. what you need to know about it is it's real, it's there, understand it. So when you see things are coming, especially if you're a manager or leader, your attitude, the way you do things will affect everybody. But bigger than that, how your company views things really affects how you look at things, right? So, when you're a manager, you want to be able to influence that to the best, to get the best outcome for your company. All right. Learning objectives, explain the relationship between ethics and the law. Make it real hard between them. But we did talk about how law becomes ethical, right? That's really what it is. Ethics change, laws change. Differentiate between the claims of the different stakeholder groups that are affected by managers and their company actions. We know now, probably already knew, but now we got a very definite idea that what we do not only affects just the customer or just the employee. If you're a manager, a lot of times when you manage people, you only think about your employee, you know, think about your manager, forget about the customer. We've been in those organizations, you know. You ever been to Wendy's or McDonald's where they're having that conflict and you're waiting, they forgot about the customer, they're arguing out at the window of the night, and they were arguing again with a bunch of people at Wendy's, about 5 of them. And they were arguing if I said no ketchup or ketchup only. And it was holding me up. And I'm thinking, you know what? Well, yeah, but I'm right here. Just ask. And I wasn't in a hurry, but it was like, wow. But they were. You had a manager and another shift boss and then 2 others in there, and they're going back and forth, yin-yanging. Then they realize I'm peering at them, and they close the window, but you can still see them. They're still arguing, but the crux of the argument was which one it was, and they forgot about the customer. Their culture was, their climate of that day was, they didn't see as a manager. I want to tell you that manager from the side. Think about it from the perspective of the customer. What are you trying to portray across here? But it happens. Discuss why it's important for managers to behave ethically, identify the 4 main sources of managerial ethics, distinguish 4 main approaches towards those responsibilities that can be taken. All right. And then that's hopefully we agree on with that. All right. Any questions, concerns on ethics and social responsibilities? How are my Zoom students doing? You still with me?
Yes, I am.
All right. I checked my phone because last semester.
I'm here.
Okay, good. I was talking and it seemed like an answer, and they were texting me, and I thought it'd be rude to check my phone. They were trying to tell me I'm here, but I think my speaker was off or something. So that wasn't it. All right. Classroom people, we need a break. Or we good to roll on?
I'm good.
2 chapters tonight, so we should be good. I do have one.
Really good out.
Yeah. I'm going to skip the ethics PowerPoint. It was just an extra thing with ethics, but I think we got it. Let's go to managing diverse employees in a multicultural environment. Now this, oh, is it hitting us now? All right, we'll press on.
No break.
No break, we'll go so we can get out of here. Yeah.
Certainly good
It's
messages.
probably like,
Where are you?
it says 90%.
Okay, that little time. If you need to go though, just get got 4-wheel drive. Look at you go. Managing diverse employees in a multicultural environment. Today, that's big, right? It's huge. You got to be able to navigate through this. Again, my take on this from the start: diversity is good. It will allow you, and I've seen this in my job throughout my career, more infusion of different ideas and thoughts will lead to a better decision every time. You can't always force diversity, but if you set things in place and they're there and you have multidimensional views on a thing, ways to attack the problem, we know, we'll do better at solving problem science today. Money's involved. Our greatest scientists are somewhat segregated from each other, not diversely as far as along the lines of racial religion or any of that. It just has to do with they're not having people mingle because of the competition between them. And if you come from a different background, we need the Germans, we need the French, we need the Americans, they all come together, you come up with better solutions. That's just one of the drawbacks. We know this, we don't fix it sometimes. But if you can set yourself up for success, if you have the ability to go with diversity, then go with it. I've always said when hiring, all things equal amongst everybody in there, I will look for the one that's different from the rest of us. Go with us, because if we all get to looking like, oh, and naturally, if you don't watch it and you don't proactively go against it, and you have control of hiring or who you bring around you, you're gonna have people who think like you. Not necessarily look like you, but think like you. A lot of times that means they look like you too. But I'm attacking it from the point of if they think like you, right? So that means if I had my way unconsciously and did it the way it was, I would have a conservative person who likes the outdoors and sports around me, and because that's me, right? I'm naturally conservative and that kind of thing. You gotta have diversity in thought.
Somebody else telling me what I'm already.
Exactly. So that's where we're getting at. So what is diversity? The similarities, differences among people in age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion. Sexual orientation is not a law yet, by the way. Looks a little cutting edge right here with that. Some places it is, but it doesn't fit into some laws we're going to get into yet. Socioeconomic background and capabilities and disabilities. So you're not ethically, socially, you're considered a minority if you have sexual orientation different than the norm, right? But still by law today, that's not there yet. Just throw you out there for your HR people. Now, can you get in trouble over it? Absolutely. Doesn't mean that case law won't win on that. There's just no act that we're going to study here that says that yet. Probably coming. Here's sources of diversity. Read all of those, right? Gender, race, I mean, anything that makes you different or stand out. Some things in here that we forget about: education. You need different education levels, right? Experience, capabilities, and disabilities. Socioeconomic background. So we all get that the gender, race, and ethnicity and religion in there, right? More and more. But there's some other ones in here to look at. Physical appearance, right? So the airline industry got a lot of trouble over that one. In the 80s and 90s, they were not going to hire stewardesses, or whatever you call them now, flight attendants, stewardess then, that were not attractive. And then they made them wear certain things and makeup and stuff. Now you can't make people wear makeup. Did y'all know that? Can't make them do that. Yeah, I saw people in our companies. My niece Conway got a second job at some place, Asian restaurant. They told her she had to wear makeup. She was living with me at the time. I didn't say that. She needs to learn not to wear makeup, but new job. She already wasn't liking it. A bit of an attitude. Anyway, they fired her for some reason later. Never told her many mad then. I'm gonna go tell them you couldn't make it, but they told her that. They wanted her to dress herself like, you're stepping out there. You can't do that. So some HR things. Are y'all familiar with the glass ceiling? Zoom students, glass ceiling. Do y'all know what that is?
Yes.
Last class, zero know it. Some people know it. Here's the definition, and I'll explain it. It alludes to the invisible barriers that prevents minorities and women from being promoted to top corporate positions. Okay. Bottom line is, there's no hard, fast rule, but you're not ever going to make it to the higher things. NFL was this way for a long time, had a glass ceiling, right? If you were going to be a coach in the NFL, you was going to be a white male.
Just now hired a full-time
Female coach,
Yeah,
right.
just- I did that.
Yeah. Which one
Earlier today.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we were trying to concentrate quickly.
Yeah, somebody had a full-time coach, so there's still a glass ceiling in football, in referees and things. Now, how do you make it without making a rule? Because you say to a company, you say, or a company says back to you, I'm not going to hire them. It's nothing I'm gonna hire people. I don't have that rule. I'll hire anybody. I'm opening them first. Then you look at them, and they all look alike. How do you do that? Well, so it's not just there's glass ceiling. You do not put people in positions that would allow them to progress to that next position. There's grooming jobs for jobs, right? So that's what the glass ceiling is, and that's the underlying thing of how you do it. So it's not a company making a conscious decision, although it could be. That was probably in the 60s, 70s, going, we're not going to hire minorities and make them managers. We're not going to hire women and make them managers for whatever reasons they had. It's not that. It was me talking about naturally, if I'm not proactive about promoting diversity, everybody that's around me, right, and I'm a boss, is just like me and thinks like me. So the next guy that replaces me, because typically you should train your next replacement, is like me. And in any job, there's those stepping stone jobs that lead you to that next one. You're not become the CEO usually, unless your dad owns the company or something, unless you have been in certain positions as you go up. Does that make sense? So a lot of times, well-intended companies, that's why you look at a university that's never hired a black coach in their life, say, but we're good with that. But the reality of it is they've never had offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or this job or that job, and you go out there and look because there's stepping stones right there. You see it. That's in football. You see it in all corporations, everything else. Right? Our governor I'll be honest about it. Our governor just had an inquiry a year and a half ago to the Arkansas National Guard as to why is there not any minorities leading. Weird phenomenon because 15, 20 years ago, we had minorities leading. So I'm sitting at the bosses meeting, and this is the chiefs that run the Arkansas National Guard. I'm the lowest ranking guy there, but there's 22, 30 of us in the room. I'm counting as they break this up, and they come out and they say, listen, we had a study. We had some complaints, and we talked to minorities, and hey, they're saying we're not diverse. I don't know. We got the diversity program, and we're big in diversity. We got this. You walk out here, you'll see African American month. You'll see every kind of month there is. You'll see we have all these programs and everything else. And I'm looking around, but I get it. I think it was 32. I counted everybody in that particular room. Me being the lowest ranked. These are the people that were brought, and all of us were white males except for one. There was one female in there, white. So, in a matter of a 5-year period, we turned things around to where everybody looked alike and thought alike. And we all looked alike and thought alike, pretty much except for me. I looked like everybody else, had a little different methodology of thinking, at least I think I did. But there was a couple particular guys, unintentionally, I know them well. I think I know their hearts. They're good leaders. But they promoted people who thought like them. In fact, I heard this statement. He's a good person. He thinks like me. That was actually a statement from a senior leader. He reads the books I read. When someone questioned, well, what do you mean? Like, he reads the books I read. Of course he reads books. He gave him a reading list. I didn't read those books. But I did get the questions. So that is a glass ceiling in a nutshell, right? So you could turn around and say we were very pro diversity because we have all these programs, we don't discriminate in any way, and you could not point to any one thing that we discriminated on. However, to get to where I got, you had to have several other jobs. And then you looked around, and that was the question. Somebody finally said, well, what about the other jobs that get you here? What do they look like? Now you're getting somewhere. Because they were first complaining, because everybody in the room was like, why are you telling me this? Am I the bad guy? I didn't promote me. I'm here. See where the problem comes in? Everybody automatically takes offense when you bring up a glass ceiling, and you're the part of the glass ceiling. It's above it, right? So they were originally, it was very uncomfortable. Because I was thinking with being the lowest guy, I'm not saying nothing. I'm thinking, this is crazy. I had nothing to do with this. But somebody smart said, what about the people below us? What do they look like? We started adding their names up. I mean, that's our replacements, right? They all look about like us. Glass ceiling. We've since busted that 2 years back. Or at least I hope we have. I'm no longer in Arkansas Guard, so I think they have though. But anyway, this happens in companies all the time. That's glass ceiling. Everybody got it. And It's very real for women for the longest time. We still see football, oddly enough, referees and stuff. We saw it as being leaders. They didn't make women managers, period. Right? Then minorities were hit the same way. So that's a real thing. So, is it still there? Absolutely. Is it as intentional as it used to be? In a lot of cases, no. Maybe in some cases it is. I don't know. But it's important to understand that you can be in that as a manager, just like I was, have nothing to do with it except for just being in it. So then once you realize and go, wait a minute, proactively, what I need to do is groom the people under me that's diverse. So that goes back to my statement. When people think, when I first say this, they say, well, you're crazy. You're just picking people just because if everything's equal, the only reason you made a decision on first because you're different. Yes. And that way I don't end up in another uncomfortable meeting. Right? Plus, I've found out through my career it helps tremendously because I've got diversity involved. We've become more effective. Oh, by the way, at that particular time, the Arkansas National Guard has the lowest strength ever, our lowest readiness level. Readiness means how ready are we to go to war than we ever had. We all thought like just 10 years ago, we could do a lot better. And I think we'll do a lot better now. Diversity involved. So here's some major EEO laws. Equal Pay Act requires that men and women pay equally if they are performing equal work. Okay, that's a law. Is it always followed? No. Do women coaches make as much men coaches? No. Now, you can argue all day long that they shouldn't because they don't pull in the crowds and all that, but that's just one. Sports are always my analogies, or usually are. But Equal Pay Act, okay? So we got that. It's a law. You're supposed to do it. You do it right. But as a whole, women still make less, correct, than men for the same professions and jobs across the board out there. 1964, Title VII, Civil Rights Act, prohibits discrimination based on, and this is where I was getting at, race, religion, sex, color, or national origin. Right? So I can't not hire you because of those reasons. I don't like your color, your religion, whether you're man or female, or national origin. Right? I can't do that. Does it still happen? Yeah, but there's a law against it, shouldn't do it. Age discrimination. Man, this hits me hard. Prohibits discrimination against workers over the age of 40 and restricts mandatory retirement. Obviously, that don't apply to the military. They make us, if we got mandatory retirement, I'm facing it soon, probably. It's no probably in a couple of years. I'll have mandatory. I'll probably go out before then. But 40, they consider, I guess, the old age. I'm 43, so I think that's pretty young. But 40 is, you can't, because of age, right? They still do that today. One of the reasons that people still have that bias. I mean, they tell, get out of the military now is what people advise me. While you still have an opportunity to achieve a job. You get to 48 to 50, you're not going to get the higher paying job. You don't have time to work for it. But legally, they can't put that out there and do that. A lot of these, they make these laws because people are breaking them. Always because people are breaking those. Doesn't mean that they quit breaking because the law's there. Pregnancy, you can't discriminate against women in employment decisions based on pregnancy, childbirth, and related medical decisions. So I can't say, you have kids yet, don't having kids, and then not hire you. Right? Can't not promote you because you might get pregnant and be gone for a while. Americans with disabilities, same thing. We got to, that's where we have to have all the handicap stuff and everything else, and make sure everything's fair and equal for them. Then we have to come back up with the Civil Rights Act. Again, prohibits discrimination and allows for the awarding of punitive and compensatory damages. See, it's when they made it in '64, it was a grand idea, but like I said, did they still do it? Yes. So they had to come back and say, look, we meant act right. So you can now have to be sued for not doing it. There's a punishment that comes with it. And then Family and Medical Leave Act requires employers to provide 12 weeks of unpaid leave. So we can't make you come back. I don't have to pay you, but I can't make you come back. Another big thing in the news because some countries will pay you the entire time. Consequently, the military will pay you the entire time. But a company don't want to pay you if you're not there. Diversity in religion, accommodations for religious beliefs, scheduling of critical meetings, providing flexible time off for holy days, posting holy days for different religions on the company calendar. And then we'll talk about Sandy Koufax. Anybody know who Sandy Koufax is? Pitcher, baseball, 60s, 70s, something like that. Yeah, he's Hall of Famer. He won several World Series. All right, he did the unthinkable. He's Jewish. Dr. Ford come along, right? During Dr. Ford, during the series, he didn't pitch. They lost the game. Ended up winning the World Series. He come back and pitch because he was a shutdown pitcher. He was that good if he wasn't going to be there. And people were like, hey, you can't do that. We're paying you millions of bucks at that time, whatever they paid him, a lot of money. Gotta have it. You owe us. You owe the fans everything else. Mm-hmm. Workforce. Like, no, here's the bill. You got to provide to an extent. What you don't have to do in America is pay people when they're off. Right now in the news is Muslims working for a particular company wanting excessive prayer. Anyway, they wanted prayer breaks 5 times a day. And the company's like, no, can't give them to you because it cuts down on production. I'll accommodate holidays and certain things, but I'm not going to give you these, what they call excessive breaks for prayer for a long time. You get your 15 minutes an hour, or 4 hours, or whatever it is, or an hour, I guess, however it works in that world. So, they're fighting that, but you got to be cognizant of people's religion, on certain things. This job when I worked here, or I moved over, a guy worked for me, he's a civilian state employee, Jewish, so they're not for stuff, he puts in a leave. Now, I asked, hey man, you're on leave, what you gonna do tomorrow? I gotta go be at the family stuff. So, do I have to give him the day off? Yes. Do I have to charge him his used leave for that? No. Do I have to give him a free day? No. I have the choice. What I did, I just gave him the day free. Right? He's like, well, thank you. You don't have to. I'm not pushing it. I said, I know. He's like, I split Christmas. He goes, yeah, but I'm off on Christmas too. He's pretty fair about it. But I thought, well, hey, you have an obligation to your religion to go do this. I didn't have to. Did that though. As a good employee, might as well keep it with it. Got a guy told me, he may whisper me, better not do that. Somebody else will push it. That rule. If you do it for one, you got to do it for all. Somebody comes to me and tells me they have a religious holiday they can go to, and I have the ability to let them off for free, then I will. I did. I gave them a pass. So workforce diversity for capabilities and disabilities, providing reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. So we got to have the wheelchair ramps, and then they realize, wait a minute, it doesn't do much good to have the ramp when we come to work and don't have a handicap accessible bathroom and things like that in break rooms. That's why those are there. It seems simple to us today because we live it, we see it all the time, but you got to realize that wasn't the case. You really didn't have an opportunity to get a job if you have disability early on, 50s, 60s, 70s, until these acts came about. Promoting unless one place just happened to be very forward thinking. Promoting a non-discriminatory workplace environment and educating the organization about disability and AIDS. Not as big as it used to be, but it's still out there. You can't not hire people into certain jobs, of course. The managerial roles. Managers can take many more steps to become sensitive to ongoing effects of diversity in organizations, take advantage of all the contributions diverse employees can make. That's what I was talking about, and prevent diverse employees from being unfairly treated. So as a manager, you can be responsible for like a lot of things, right? We can head this off at the pass in management situations. We can ensure by knowing these acts, that's why it's in here under principles of management, not a principle per se of how to manage, but knowing this as a manager, then the principle, the overarching principle is make a diverse, fair workplace for all. Think about everybody. Like I said, today we kind of get it. You need to have a bathroom, a changing station for a guy because he might be changing a baby. You need to have a handicapped accessible toilet because you might have somebody who's handicapped working for you or possibly going to, or coming in to visit. You'll restrict them if you don't. Think those second and third order effects. Also in hiring decisions or mentoring decisions and promoting people and whatnot. Think diversity. You want to make yourself a valuable leader to the company and help your bottom line with intangible things. Some of the things you can do, like I mentioned, make decisions based off of getting the first thought. And think about it this way. Don't just pick people just because they're different or not because they're different. Go for diversity in thought or actions or where they come from. I know a couple guys that I work with who are my peers who are African American males, but we are like 2 Bs, 3 Bs, and 5, 3 of us, good friends. We have the same thought process. We grew up all two of them, two of us in Southeast Arkansas, the other one in Mississippi, just across the border. Didn't know each other growing up, Mississippi guy, but we did the same things. Do this. We love football the same. We're all the same. A lot of the same things there. Diversity also, not just in at the looking thought and everything else to get that in there. So you get a chance as a manager, mentor somebody, ever do that. Pick the people who are different. 2 reasons. One, it'll help them and the company, it'll help you grow too. Those are not in the book, just tips from me. But I always look to do that. When I was picking my mentors early on in my career, I picked people who were just like thought-wise and everything else, not that comfortable. That was a mistake. They didn't help me grow. Somewhere midway through my career, and it's helped me tremendously. You know, I have a lot of influence, but I picked William Johnson as my mentor. First African American general in the state of Arkansas. Grew up in North Little Rock. Grew up in the city. I grew up in a small rural town. He's a good 20 years older than me. So he grew up during civil rights times. I grew up in a completely different environment and culture. You couldn't find 2 different people, 2 different demeanors and styles and everything. But when I went to him to be my mentor, he just smiled and said, "Yeah, we'll make this work." And man, have I learned a lot and helped my career. Not because he says, "Oh, pick this guy," because he's never done that. He's always been rather blunt with me and hard about what things to do. But it was a good other way of looking at things.
What is it? The first thing was just picking somebody to think like you, but being colorblind to their race.
Mhm.
Because I was in management, it wouldn't be what some of you are. Just can you think like me as far as being team?
Yeah.
Can you get the job done?
Sure.
That's what I would.
I would look for so much success. That's what I did. I wasn't looking for William Johnson for any other reason other than the fact that my other advice that I had was stuff that I already knew. And when I talked with those guys, I already knew these things. We talked, did alike and everything, and they pushed me to do exactly what they did. And I knew that I needed to get out of that mold because that put me, because I was in the majority, it put me in the middle of everybody. So quite frankly, I was looking to stand out. I went to General Johnson at the time. He was a colonel, wasn't a general yet, sir. He was 2 levels up from me. I need a mentor. You don't have a mentor, so I got a mentor. I need another mentor. Because right now, I am middle of the road with everybody else. What can I do to make myself stand out? And that's when you can say, well, we'll get through this. We'll work it out. And, so yeah, it wasn't a color thing. If that was the case, that poor guy would have had, we were all white now. So he had about 300 people to mentor. So, but yeah, you're right. You need to pick someone, and that's what you're pushing: diversity and thought, different outlook on life. But yet, not just for those sole reasons, because they might not be very successful, very good, right? They got to have the right thing. So, so mentoring, procedural justice. A moral principle calling for the use of fair procedures to determine how to distribute outcomes of organizational members. The ethical imperative to manage diversity effectively. It's a moral principle is what they're saying. It's morally correct to treat everybody fair. Right? Same. We can't say that one particular group is better than another group. It's really where we're getting at. But we know that's morals. Perception, the process through which the people select, organize, and interpret where they see, hear, touch, smell, taste, and give the meaning and order to the world. So your perception really defines your reality, is what that's saying, right? So if you and we see everything through goggles. So if your goggles are a certain way, then that's what it's going to be. And you want to ensure that you have pretty clear goggles. They're not skewed in any way. Get out of that one. All right, your schema is an abstract knowledge structure stored in the memory that allows people to organize and interpret information about a person, event, or situation. Now, humanly speaking, we know that we process information a certain way. So you learn very quickly about certain things and how to learn from danger and everything else, right? So you're automatically going to have, you try to keep your goggles clear, but your schema is automatically going to be such that it's going to go with what's familiar, right? Happens all the time. So really what we're getting at here is you're going to have to be able to understand and know that and then think about it. Not always bad, of course, right? I mean, there's certain things that are healthy to that keep you alive. Do you understand that your body does for you without you knowing? When you're making a decision, don't let that be your natural reaction and continue to think that's the only way. That's your scheme. Preconceived beliefs or ideas that the nature of men and women, their traits and attitudes, behaviors, and their preferences, right? So there's some things that are natural that you're going to know and you're going to have to make decisions on, all right? An example is women, we know, and I know, let's say that I get angry at some point and gets mad, but we know as a general rule, a male is stronger, given everything equal, than a female. But if you got to make a decision as to who's fixing to carry this particular thing, right, then you take the fairness that it's fair for all, or the male can do it if it's a heavy object. You see what I'm saying? So it goes into there. So there's some preconceived beliefs that we know and we have, and it's based on our makeup of who we are and how we are. And we are, and I can see that we naturally know and do that. You see what I'm saying? So those things are there. There's not anything you can do about them. Unfortunately, in society today, sometimes we try to run from them and hide them and make them equal, right? And they're not. That's one reason you get, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's one of the reasons you have maternity leave for men now. They said, they say women wanted equal pay, and come back and say, well, they get equal pay, and I'm managing the company. Think about this now. I got to hire 23 of y'all, right? And y'all tell me y'all about to getting married and have 3 or 4 kids. I know you're gonna be off for it. I'm not gonna pay as much, or I'm gonna promote to the end. That's just natural how you want to see things, right? I'm saying it's right. That's how that goes. So that's really where you're getting at on that is that's your scheme of things. Now, so somebody come back and say, well, if we're going to pay women the same, then we've got to treat everybody equal. If we're going to treat everybody equal, then men have to have the same time off. Now, I think it's good to go be with them and have a baby. I'm not against that. But that's where that came from. You know what I'm saying? So, in some things, let's put it this way, not all things are equal. All people, in my mind, are equal, but our abilities are not. Period. So, if I had 2 guys that were the same race sitting here, it would be real easy. No one would bother me at all if I picked one based on just solely his ability. Got you, so you're an educated guy, college degree, and you got experience, and I got another guy sitting there, he's 17, never done anything. I'm immediately going to, my scheme, it's going to be, I got an abstract knowledge. I don't know you that well, but I'll look at a resume, and I'm going to pick that guy there. The problem is, if we have a different race now, or gender, then are we truly being seen as discriminating? No, but you got to be able to do that. Well, I'll give you a good example. If you have to pick between 2 people to win a swimming race for you, and you only got a little bit of knowledge, and one guy grew up on an island, a small island, and the other guy grew up in the desert, given all things else, and then which one are you going to pick to grew up on the island? Because the chances are, they'll swim. If I grew up on the island, small island, I'm probably not swim. If I grew up in the desert, I might never seen a body of water large enough to swim in, but yeah, they swim in it. You see what I'm saying? That's what scheme is. You're going to have this knowledge right off the bat when you see people that's going to lead you to that. It's not always correct. Okay, I gave you some facts about something. It's not always going to be correct. But again, I can make an assumption that you're stronger than her. Might not be correct, but generally speaking, that would be correct, right? And it's not just a strength thing. There's a lot of different ones, but that's what scheme is, and that's how we have to determine. The important thing to know about this as a manager is those things are there and they're real. So when you make your decisions, consider those. And then when people make their decisions above you or below you, understand they're doing that, whether they know it or not. So if you know someone's fixing to make a decision based on you, then you might want to change that if it's not to your favor, right? That's what that is. Stereotypes now. Not schema, stereotypes. Simplistic and often inaccurate beliefs about typical characters of particular groups of people. A schema is, like I said, a natural kind of thing. A stereotype is bad, usually, right? Can you think of any stereotypes? Yeah.
Where like people need that I was not allowed to have to pick up my way. Yeah, that's stereotype. You know, people like this, they don't like that. So he had that stereotype.
Yeah, she was concerned about the haircut and the tattoos.
Yeah. She did not want me to be a stereotypical lesbian.
Right. I got you. Okay, as if that was, yeah, I got you. That was it. Yeah. Yeah. That is, hey, it's kind of funny. We had a Thanksgiving dinner, but at my house for the first time this year, my in-laws were going to come up, and then my wife's cousin, she moved to town, and she's 21, 2, going to college, and that was the same stereotype that my father-in-law had. Now, he acted very well, everything was good, but when my wife and my mother-in-law did this, they choose not to tell him certain things at certain times. So she's in town, her family is down in Houston, so I was supposed to invite Brittany to dinner. And I said, okay, that's fine. She said, but she's probably going to invite her partner, which is another girl. That's fine. That's her, that's family. She needs to be with family on Thanksgiving if she wants to be. And so my father-in-law, they choose not to come to each other up. And after she left, he goes, well, that wasn't bad. Same thing. He said, she didn't have that haircut. I was like, well, yeah. This, yeah.
When I was with my dad, then was also he expected that I was a girl and a guy.
Mm,
And I don't. But
yeah.
that's what he expected. So the Roy told me he did not want anything to do with it because he lived in the country.
And if you did, it wouldn't mean that that's always the case. That's what a stereotype is. It's based in some truth of a particular person of that group. It's happened, not an unfounded thing, but you can't apply it to an entire group. That's where the simplistic comes in, often inaccurate, because you try to take one action and put it across the entire broad spectrum. It doesn't work. So yeah, that's a stereotype, right? Not a schema. A bias is a systematic tendency to use information about others in ways that result in inaccurate perceptions. So when you have a bias, you go even a step further, right? And you use information about others against them as you want a negative or inaccurate perception of it, right? So we always think of those out there too, right? We have biases. So I'm going to make a decision based off my stereotypes, really what that believes. I'm going to start making a decision based off the stereotype, right? I'm not going to hire a lesbian because she's going to end up cutting her hair and having tattoos, and that won't look good for customers. That would be a bias versus stereotype. Stereotypes are like grandmothers, right? So there's the differences. Schema is when you move into stereotypes and move into biases, and then we move into diversity awareness programs. Provide members with accurate information about diversity, right? So if you can have programs and you have the time, you need to do these things, right? Oftentimes it's left. They don't do it. The newest one is the gay community, because there is biases and discrimination. So, and there's a lot of inaccuracies out there. So it provides for ignorance and other things to happen. So that's what happens in those, without a doubt. It used to happen on race and religion and everything else. Throughout the South, early on, Jewish and Catholic people had biases against them because of stereotypes, right? Regardless of the fact that you grew up in the same area and acted the same, once you were different, you make decisions based on whether they're Catholic or they're Jewish or this or that. And that happened, obviously it happened in race, it's happened everywhere. Now we're into that. So the idea of diversity awareness programs is to get people awareness about those to counteract those. But we'll caution you, because we'll start off with glass ceiling and whatnot. You can have them all day long, and you can still be just as bad. A program will not fix these things. It can be informational and it can be helpful if you use them the proper way. But oftentimes we'll throw a program out there and think we're good, right? The military is good about that one because we have every month there is, right? Asian American, of course, African American, Native American, Asian American. Anyway, you name it. We have gay, lesbian month. Got posters for it and everything. So there is a very strict bias, not as much as it was 5 years ago, but there's a very strict bias against homosexuals in the Army, right? Would like to say it's not, and we're for it, but I can tell you that right now, I lived it for 26 years. And it goes one way only. The female thing has never bothered the Army guys. That's never been a problem. It's the male thing.
It's like that everywhere too. It's like,
Yeah.
it's different when you're a girl. The girl.
Those are out there. But I can tell you, we got a program for it. It has not fixed it, and that program is not going to fix it. They'll take other things to do it. But programs themselves are not bad. They're good to provide awareness about that. So you can tell grandma, give her a diversity program that, you're not going to have to cut your hair to be in the club and have a tattoo. Which I'll get on my tattoo thing later. They're bad. They're not, but people will judge you due to your tattoo. That's my thing. That's why you don't see a bumper sticker on. Uncover personal biases and stereotypes, which you do as a manager. Assess personal beliefs, attitudes, and values, learn about other points of view. This is what these programs are for. I would say without the program, you should be doing this as a manager. Just because the program's there don't mean you shouldn't do this. Because a lot of people say, I went to diversity day today or such and such, so I did good. Kind of like saying I went to church. That's good. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a Christian either, right? That's my take on that. Develop an atmosphere in which people feel free to share their different perspectives. Oftentimes I've been in these programs and it doesn't develop an atmosphere. It develops an atmosphere in which we showcase that you're different. And that's not good either. How about let's just be the same and not treat you any different? That's really where we would need to be. So, but that's well-intended things. Improve understanding of those who are different. And they can help that too. Okay. Moving off of that one into forms of sexual harassment. Everybody knows the difference between harassment and assault, right? Assault's when we touch you in any way, somebody touches you. Harassment's anything other than the touching. One's far more serious than the other. Saying stuff, right? So asking or quid pro quo, this would be part of that test question, I would imagine, is asking for or forcing an employee to perform sexual favors in exchange for receiving some reward, avoiding negative consequences. Right? You do this for me, and you'll get promoted, or you won't get fired, or I won't tell this, or I'll do that. That's what that happens. Used to happen a lot. Hopefully, it doesn't as much, but rules against that out there. There we go. Stereotype. Got out of order on this last thing. Ascribing specific variable traits to individuals based on their apparent membership in the group. Right? We talked about that. That's bad. Now, prejudice. What is that? Bias from prejudging someone based on some trait. We all know examples of that, right? We have prejudice in people because they have a particular trait. So then we prejudge that and we think that's how they are. And we do it to the negative, right? So then it gets worse. The next step is discrimination, taking specific actions toward or against a person based on the person's group. So we all have prejudices built in. We know that because of what we prefer, right? But when we take it to the next level, just like in the stereotyping, in the bias stereotyping, is when we take specific actions toward or against a person based on the person's group. So because you belong to this group, I think you're like this, and I'm going to take a specific action based on solely on that piece of information. That's not right. That's what discrimination is. Discrimination is illegal in the workplace, right? Prejudice is not. This is an act. This is who you are. Understand who you are. Think about it, and don't do that. Does that make sense? That's what you got. That part in the book, that's my personal take on. To say I have no prejudices whatsoever is wrong, right? Me, based on my experience and who I am, and you're a Muslim, I'm naturally going to have some thoughts. Now, we can work around them. I'm not going to discriminate, but that's going to have to be an active role on my part to do that. Does that make sense? I have some bad experiences in my previous, or in my life, previously in my life, with that particular religion, right? And y'all know, outside of being a soldier. So now in today's society, and I see someone who's of that, I have to be very careful to understand my prejudices are there, right? I'm not going to be able to erase the prejudices I have per se anytime soon, but I certainly can control my actions, how I react. Does that make sense? That's the difference to me in that discrimination. And as a manager, the principle is to know those differences. Don't try to erase someone's who they are, but their actions can contribute or should be. Tokenism, we've heard of that one. You know what that is? Appointing a small group of women or minorities to high-profile positions based on the fact that person is minority. You kind of mentioned that earlier, but you shouldn't just say this is what we did in the workplace in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. So these acts came out, and you can't do this. And then we got serious about it and get you. We're going to start fining if you don't do it. So we looked around and said, you're a minority. You're not a manager. Now everybody's angry because you got someone in there not qualified. Not qualified because, not because they're the minority, because we had a glass ceiling and we never got them in the right roles. But to keep me out of trouble, I said, I'm a minority. Look, point around the ring. If anybody's got to tell you how many minorities they got, so they're trying to explain to you that they have a diverse program, I can tell you this, they are a discriminating company. The company says, well, I've got 14 Asians and 13 African Americans, so I'm diverse. That's not diversity. That's not what it is. That's tokenism. Does that make sense? I put them in this place. I have just diluted my pool here of the people that are like me with some other people that are not like me, but I have no reason other than the fact that I'm trying to get around the law. That's when the laws shouldn't dictate behavior, right? So that's another moral thing for me. I think you don't rely on laws.
And that's just like a few years ago when I had some other stuff that needed to be done to my house. When the guy gave me a choice to make a choice of who I wanted, there was a black guy and it was what race it was. I call him Hispanic, but I heard call him Hispanic.
Yeah,
But I didn't judge them, just pick this one because he was black. I wasn't gonna do that. I'm gonna pick who I thought was best for me. And when the black guy came, he told me he was gonna come. And told me what time he was gonna come. I'm leaving my job, so I'm about to, I'm giving up my lunch break for this. Not only that when he said he was coming, I had beat him to the house. He called me and said, I gotta stop and get some gas. But you called me the night before and told me that you was coming. When I made it to the house, he basically took away my whole hour plus some time. He had to stop and get some gas, he had to stop and do this, and he had to stop and do that. I didn't have him.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the people that I thought they were good, so it wasn't based on because he was black. I was gonna automatically hire. I'm gonna hire whoever I feel is gonna do the job for. Yeah, that's the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be colorblind when it comes down to me.
Yeah, and you should be in the workplace. Well, it should be everything, but obviously in the workplace as a manager to keep yourself out of trouble, number one, and number two, make yourself profitable for the company for all the reasons we mentioned. It's why it's in the book and why it's very important. And then recognize tokenism when it's there. Some keywords, and not just if someone says it doesn't necessarily, there's no absolute say, well, I got this many of these minorities. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's there, but that would be a red flag for me right off the bat because I've been in that type of situation and they count it that way. Well, we got this person, this person, and this person. Then it stops there. Or they'll tell you, I've got 14 different diversity programs. Again, they're not bad in itself. It's not bad to have diversity, but it still doesn't account for what we talked about first. They're still going to be a glass ceiling. And then it just creates dissent, right? No one wants to work with someone that's not qualified. And think about the poor person that wasn't qualified. Now, most people don't turn down promotion, so you take the job, and I'll take any job you give me. I will. You make me a general today or to run this country. Probably not qualified to do it. I'm just not the kind of guy that's going to say no, right? But then I'm going to feel bad after a while because I'm going to let a lot of people down because I didn't have the experience to do it. So it's not good all the way around when you're making an action just to keep out of trouble. So that's what took place. Ethnocentrism, viewing members of other social groups less favorably than your own, all in the same discrimination and thing. So if you're a different social group, that would be something that I would, would say about me. I don't want to do ethnocentrism against Muslims at all, right? I don't want to view them less favorably in my social group because they have a different social way of dealing with things than we do, right? As Christians, we're opposed on some very serious issues, how you treat people.
How do you deal with it when they try to change their beliefs and all of that stuff?
Well, yeah, I don't like them. I'm not going to accept that. I think that, well, I won't get off on the whole moral thing, but I go back to Old Testament and the Ten Commandments. Okay? So if we got that as a base of knowledge and understanding, then we have a very good chance of getting along. We have common ground. No matter what your religious belief is, if I read those 10 things to you, they're the Ten Commandments. Most people in our society go, that's pretty much where I agree with that. Right? I follow them, but I'm going to agree with them. We shouldn't do those things. If your particular group doesn't, I'm not saying that Muslims don't, but they don't hold to that always, and that's where it puts me in conflict. But I also got to realize that for a lot of people, just like being a Christian is more of a culture thing than a heart thing. Because we just I grew up in the South, but I went to church, and I'm a Christian. We identify that way. For a lot of people, to be Muslim is that way too. They're not having those beliefs per se. Not that it's wrong to have those particular beliefs. They're different from mine. That will set us. It's going to be hard to find a common ground. We can not kill each other, but it's going to be. We're not going to hang out either. If you don't see women as equal, right? If you think my daughter is less and should be treated the way their particular religion calls for. Now, again, that gets into stereotype and everything else. Does every single Muslim believe that way? Have I read the Quran? No, no, and no. All that is no. Does every Christian believe the same way? No. And I don't want to be judged by Westboro Baptist, right? Those guys running around because they have that name. So that's why I got to make sure I don't do that. Now, if we do get to have a conversation and then we get to those things, they look me in the eye and say to me, if I don't tell me this, no, this is the way it should be. Well, we're opposed on those issues, and we'll have to stay that way. That's just the way it is. Yeah, pretty much. We're going to agree to disagree on that. But I try not to intentionally have it. But if you don't watch it, it's easy to do, right? You don't watch it. Because you can be well-intended. Say your grandmother was well-intended, right? She loves you. There's no doubt, right? That she loves you, but then, things happen. So that's how those things. Right, exactly. What social groups were you a member of in high school and college? I was in a fraternity when I was in college, so there's a certain amount of stereotypes right off the bat with those guys. I'll tell you this, though. At UCA, I was a member of Pi Kappa Alpha, and this is something I'm proud of now. There's a lot of things I was not proud of. But we gave over $20,000 a year. Our fraternity, our chapter was a large chapter, and we generated money. We gave over $20,000 a year in charity. Volunteered because you had to. Everybody had to volunteer with some boys club, other things. So there's a lot of stereotypes out there, social groups of people go, I ain't gonna turn that by my friends, that I'm thinking to myself, that ain't fair. I mean, some of that's there and we're not always right, but you didn't see the good. You gotta think about that every group. That's just my group. There's a lot of other groups that are the same way. All right, that's it. One last thing. Since you brought up tattoos, can't help it, Dad and me. I ain't got no problem with anybody having tattoos. Let me tell you a fact. 98% of all people in prison have a tattoo prior to going to prison. That doesn't mean that 98% of the people don't understand my fact with tattoos are going to go to prison. That means me with no tattoos stand a lot greater chance of never going to prison than people with tattoos. Let me tell you why. It's a prejudging building. Kids ask me to see my neighbor. They got this sign in the yard. We're gonna put a sign. People are mad at me. No, we're not putting a sign in our yard. I don't care. Well, we believe in that. Absolutely, I'm not putting that sign. And I'm not afraid of my beliefs at all. I don't put bumper stickers on the car. I'm certainly not gonna put a tattoo on my body because people look at that. And I can't help it. I'm gonna look at you. You're gonna look at me. That's why I dress a certain way and everything else, right? So, and I worry about those things. Not to the extent that it's unhealthy. I'm just saying you have to. People are gonna judge you by the way you look. I see a tattoo, it's going to say something, and then I'm going to make a quick judgment. And then people get angry when people make judgments about those. I'm just telling you up front, when we talked about schema, it's natural. When you put an opinion, and the tattoo's an opinion of what you think, like, or do, right? Use your reason for it, but it's basically an opinion of yours on your body for others to see. Be ready, right, wrong, or indifferent. It could be completely wrong, too, about you, by the way. That's the reason to do it. Not that I have from beliefs. You ask me anything, I will very upfront and confidently tell you what my beliefs are. Don't shy away from them. However, when I meet you, I want to be as neutral as possible when we first meet so that you will not have years of bias. Because I have to work hard to not have them. So I'm not against tattoos, but that's the same thing I get in my kids. Listen, don't do it because people prejudge you. Plus, you might change your mind. You're young. I've changed my mind. Again, plenty of good people with tattoos. Work with them every day. You know, I'm not against them, but that's just the fact they get.
I don't like I have a bad thing with pants below, when pants off you. Not wearing pants right. How do you say it? Just bring your pants low.
Yeah.
And when I see somebody do that, I automatically prejudge. Just kind of like you said with the tattoo.
Yeah. You ever hear Chris Rock, the comedian? I love when he had one of his things, which I'm not endorsing Chris Rock, but the one thing he said was very funny to me was he said he was talking about women and the way they dress, and then they get mad at the club the way men approach them. He did it in a funny way, but his point was very good. He said, "You don't want me to treat you that way, but you dress that way. But you say you should be able to dress that way, and not me not treat you that way." He said, "So what would happen if, say, I got up in the morning, I put on a policeman jacket, and I go walking down the road, right? And somebody snatches your purse or starts assaulting you, and you say, 'Hey, policeman, help me!' And you go, 'Oh, I'm not a policeman. I just dress that way.'" It was a good point. It's a good point. That doesn't make it right. However, we understand and know human nature is such, and that's what we're getting at with the managing diverse employees in the workplace. Is they're going to be there, those prejudices and stuff, as a manager. That's why there's dress codes and everything else. You try to recognize them and not make your decisions based off of bad information or prejudging people, right? But also realize that they're there. So when you have the opportunity, now again, I'm naturally conservative. And I come from an organization where we all have to look alike, we dress alike, which is pretty cool because when I do retire, I don't know what I'm gonna do about clothes. I got like 3 sets, right? Go to meeting, one of those, and 2 other things, and a pair of shorts. I mean, I don't have to wear clothes because I wear a uniform every single day, Saturday and Sundays. But we all look alike and try to. So I'm a little skewed to that, but about to be said for that in a professional environment, right? This is a class about being a professional. So anyway, that's just my take. Any questions? All right, you go take that test. All right, and then be looking for them. They're due on Sunday nights. Tests are all assignments, pretty much everything's due on Sunday nights. If you're missing them and you're late, you can shoot me an email, but always do them late's better. If not, I start deducting after 5 days, and there's nothing more to deduct in my mind. It's done. You get a 0 test in this case because I shut it off. We'll go with that. That's where we're at. Looking news, everybody. That's where I put my weekly for something about there for the entire class. And check your email in the web study. Yeah, submit the topic by tonight. Non-graded event, I'll put 1 point on there when I approve it. That way I know that you got it. Some people ask some really good questions about the topics and stuff. Even if you told me and I said yes to it, like tonight, go ahead and put it in there because now it's a matter of
Do
Yep.
a word, just type it in there.
Yep. And we'll do it. Yeah, did you see my comments on that? And if you have to turn in something, you should get a comment from me. Look over on the comments, you should see it. Unless it's the form, and unless you're late or said something really bad, which no one has, you won't get a comment. What you'll get, well, I'll reply to you within a thread. Everybody that says something, you should see me say something back. Even if I just say I agree with what they said, so you know that I'm reading. I read everyone, and I read everybody else's response to theirs in there. So if y'all want to go read them and read the cases. You don't have to. If you miss class, if you have to miss class, you can go do that. But those are good. So do that and read those because hey, pretty good to read the threads because there's some pretty good insight because people are honest and it's good. I really enjoyed the forums. Another 19 or so.
Yeah, I know. I looked on there. It was like 27 of them. And I was like, "Oh, that? They're all here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, those in there, you can read them. You can jump in and respond to them and get some thought going. That's the whole idea is just to get discussion going about what's in there because you can miss it out in the class like our discussion we're having here. But I really enjoyed the part of it. The assignments are okay, but when you read 26 of them with the same question, it begins to run together. But everybody's doing a pretty good job. Oh, one last thing so everybody knows and understands. You might see comments when you do yours, some other people see them. That's like our test progresses. When we ask questions in the book, we're asking, yes, everybody's good about giving their opinions or thoughts. Tie something in from the book, right, as to what it is. Try to say, because this definition, you can be blunt and saying the definition says this and I agree or disagree, but tie it in. So several people will be looking at this assignment, a 38 out of 40, which is still an A and you're still fine. But by the third assignment, the fourth assignment, it'll start going down. Because if you write just your opinion in there, got it, it's good stuff. But I got to know that you're reading the book. Does that make sense on the assignment? Mm-hmm. So tie into something that you read, even if it's the book said this about it, but I don't agree with it. You don't have to agree with the book, but I know you read it. You give me a definition or a principle or a something from the book in there. It would relate to it. It should relate because the questions are at the end do relate back. So ideally you looked at something there and you either changed your thought or provoked thought, or you just simply agree with it 100% and you used it. That makes sense. All right. Zoom students, any questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, we're going to cut it off tonight then. Let these people get back to beat this weather.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right. Y'all all have a good night. I will see y'all back on Thursday. And any questions, y'all email me or call me.
Okay.
I got a notification like 15 minutes ago said that it flooded 10 miles of the
Oh, yeah. My kids are excited. They're not going to go to school, they think. Yeah. All right. Thanks. You too. Back to meeting. Bye. Have a good night. There we go. No. Oh, there it is. In meeting.